Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to this webinar video. My name is Steven van der Leden and I'll be narrating this video, which is about Toprope anchor construction and cleaning. I've prepared a short agenda for you. There's going to be a short introduction. Then we're first going to talk about anchors with a single attachment point, how to construct an anchor for those, and also how to clean the anchor, how to deconstruct it. And after that I'm going to talk about anchors with multiple attachment points. Again, dealing with construction, and after that cleaning. There's also going to be covered the scenario where the quick links are too small to receive more than one carabiner. And at the end, of course, there's going to be some attention for where you can go if you have any questions. Let's start with a short introduction. As said, my name is Steven van der Leden. I work for Blue Pinnacle Training and Consultancy, a company based on Curaçao that is involved in business training but also rock climbing courses. And this is actually the rock climbing courses offering of Blue Pinnacle. Starts at basic level, goes all the way to expert level, and also to belay and rappelling coach training, which is a semi-instructor training. This video is a support for the intermediate level rock climbing course, which basically is single pitch lead climbing. And a couple of disclaimers first of all to start with. First of all, a webinar video is no substitute for formal climbing instruction or training. This is all about knowledge, so you'll also have to learn the skills, of course, in practice to actually climb safely. And finally, if I'm showing any brands of climbing gear, this is not due to sponsoring, it's simply because that was what I had available. Let's have a look at anchors with a single attachment point first. So I'm going to talk about Toprope anchors, and Toprope anchors, they come in two ways. One way is with a single attachment point, another way is with multiple attachment points. We're going to talk about single attachment point first because that's the simplest scenario. And again, keeping in mind that this is Curaçao, the Curaçao environment that we're doing this in. To the left there you see two examples of these anchors with single attachment points. A double bolt belay with quick links and a ring to the left, and in the middle a U-profile bolt with also a ring. And what I mean here with a single attachment point is that ring. So the ring is the thing that takes the carabiners, that takes the rope. And that means that we are dealing with a single point where you can attach yourself, and that means that you're safe for the entire thing. To the right there you can see a picture of my simulated setup. That is my simulation of a single attachment point. You can see a chain and a couple of quick links. The bottom quick link in my situation is going to serve as an example of a single attachment point. Alright, let's see how we construct a Toprope anchor with a single attachment point. So the situation normally would be you arrive at the top, you get basically to the place where the anchor is, and the first thing probably that you want to do is you want to put your lifeline in. Because putting your lifeline in means that then you have your hands free, you can basically do whatever you want without having to worrying about falling down. Sometimes you may be in a situation where you are standing and you are trying to clip your lifeline and you notice that the anchor is actually too high, so you need to climb up a little bit further. If this is for some reason risky, what you can always do, of course, is just clip the anchor with a quick draw so it becomes a piece of protection as well, meaning that at least you can ask for a block, or you can ask for take if you want to already hang from the rope, or if you want to climb further up, you'll be protected. But the starting situation is always for us the lifeline, so even if you clip that quick draw, it will be replaced afterwards, of course, with the lifeline when you are at that height. And next up, what we're going to do is we're going to install two screw gate carabiners into the quick link. You can see over here they are screw gate carabiners. They can also be normal carabiners with a normal snapper. That doesn't really matter too much. The reason why I'm using two is because I don't want to have a very sharp angle in the rope. If you are using screw gate carabiners, it's important to oppose these gates just like single normal carabiners. Why? Because if we are going to install the gates on the same time, at the same side, it means that if there's going to be a repeated sideways motion on the anchor, it means you can basically automatically open your screw gates. So you want to oppose the gates, even if you are using the screw gate carabiners. If you're using normal carabiners, you should oppose always, of course, to make sure that you got the equivalent protection of a screw gate carabiner. Then the rope goes inside, of course. Because I'm using screw gate carabiners, they need to be closed as well. And at that moment in time, what I can do is I can call out take or block if you're using Dutch commands. Your belayer takes you tight. Move a little bit up with the rope if you can, so your lifeline becomes slack, meaning that you can test basically if everything is in order. And then if everything is in order, you basically take your lifeline out and you call out to your belayer that you want to be lowered. Now this is all good and well, but what if you don't have enough screw gate carabiners? Well, in that case what you can also do is just use quick draws instead of the screw gate carabiners. And as you can see over here, that is what happens. So there's two quick draws basically in the single attachment points with opposed gates. That's an important thing, of course. And the rope is in this case passed through the bottom carabiners where you would normally use the rope. Very nice if you're out of screw gate carabiners and you still do have a couple of quick draws. Alright, next up let's have a look at anchor cleaning in this situation. So just a little explanation about the situation. The first climber installed the anchor, then perhaps multiple people top roped the route, and now you are the last person who does this. You want to take the rope out so you can go to another route. That means that you also want to take your screw gate carabiners with you to another place. So you will have to clean the anchor. You will have to deconstruct the anchor here. So you reach the top of the route again, and the first thing again that you want to do is you want to install your lifeline. Again, I need my hands to be free to deconstruct the anchor, but also, of course, I want to make sure that when I actually tie the rope through that I'm still attached to the wall somehow. I take a bite on the rope and I pass the bite through the single attachment point. Remember, normally that would be a ring. In this case it's a quick link. It is just an example to show you how it works. On that bite we make a knot, the figure of 8 on the bite. And this knot goes with a screw gate carabiner into the belay loop of your harness. And once I have done that, it means that I'm again connected to the rope, now even 2 times. So I'm tied in with a threaded figure of 8 and a double figure of 8 knot, and I also have this figure of 8 on a bite. And that means that, you know, the way that I've been tied into the rope originally can now be undone, and that's what I'm doing here in the middle picture. And I take the knot out of the rope in this case. I can then pull that rope through the quick link in this case, so you are left with excess rope on the other side, and it is not visible in this picture, but remember that's a figure of 8 on a bite there at the bottom, which is still connected with a screw gate carabiner to the belay loop of my harness. Normally, if the excess rope is a little bit long, it may be worthwhile to, you know, anchor it, to secure it somewhere so it doesn't stick around on the rock when you are going down and snag somewhere, meaning that you can't go down. So basically I put a simple knot into it, in this case a figure of 8 on the bite again, but you can also use a different knot, and attach it, clip it somewhere to your harness to make sure that it's out of the way. We've not finished, however. We also need to recover, of course, the screw gate carabiner, so that's what I'm going to do next. Then we're going to call out take again, or block, to the belayer so that that person can take me tight. I want to move up a little bit to the anchor. so that my lifeline becomes slack, because in this situation, because I have retied myself into the rope, it is quite useful to test whether everything is okay before you actually take your lifeline out. But in this case, everything is alright, so that means that then you can take your lifeline out and you can basically call out to the belayer that person can lower you. A question that you might ask is, when the lead climber comes up for the first time, why does he put in all that gear that needs to be recovered later on? Why not do this, what you can see here in the picture to the right directly? Then top rope, and then, once you finish, you simply pull the rope out and you don't have to anchor clean, basically. Well, the reason for this is because we want to extend the life of the climbing areas to as long as possible. And the primary way to do that is, of course, to minimize wear and tear. So by putting our own gear in, we basically make sure that the in-situ material is wearing as little as possible, meaning that we're extending the useful life of the climbing area. Remember, in-situ materials like rings, quick links, replacing stuff like that is usually expensive. It also can be labor intensive. It can even involve rebolting the anchors. So it is a very extensive effort. Whereas replacing a couple of screw gate carabiners is a very simple thing of simply going to a shop and buying a couple of new ones. So that's why we use the gear in, and only the last person who goes down using the ring or the quick link directly. Next up, let's have a look at anchors with multiple attachment points. Let's define what we're talking about here first. So anchors with multiple attachment points means there's typically 2 or perhaps 3 bolts with quick links or with rings, and they are not connected with each other. And that means that if we're going to construct an anchor, then in this case we cannot use the single attachment point that we had before. And also, when we clean the anchor, we go down, we'll need to make sure that the rope is in at least 2 of those quick links. And those are the main differences really when it comes to anchor construction and anchor cleaning, if you compare the anchor with the single attachment point to the anchors with multiple attachment points. So let's have a look at anchor construction first. So again, the scenario is at the end of lead climbing. You come to the top of the route and this is what you encounter: 2 bolts with quick links. And in this case, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to install my lifeline into one of them. Then I'm going to clip the other bolt in the anchor, just like I was climbing here, and it would be a normal bolt that I would pass. I also clip a quick draw into the other bolt of the anchor. And then I clip the rope into both of those carabiners. And it's a bit hard to see on this picture perhaps, but you'll notice that the gates of the carabiners that are through the rope, where the rope is, are opposed against each other, similar to what we saw before. And remember, this is again to simulate the idea of a screw gate carabiner. So by having opposed gates, it means that if the whole construction presses to the rock on one side, there's still one carabiner that is closed and the other way around as well. Then I call out take or block, and that means again, I move up slightly to make sure that when the belayer is taking my weight on the rope, that my lifeline becomes a little bit slack. That way I can test it, and if everything then turns out to be okay, you take out your lifeline and you call out to your belayer to lower you. Now you'll notice that this setup is in a way very simple, in the sense that it does not require you to have any specialized gear. It is something you can simply clip and clip the rope in, and you're basically finished. So it's very quick also. However, you can see that in this case it is not optimal. If you look at the picture to the right, you'll notice that the right and the highest bolt is taking most of the load really here. And that means that there's not really any form of equalization. Now this might not be too much of a problem if this is a sport climbing area where you have very good bolts, but also we need to keep in mind in this case you'll see that the rope is making a very sharp angle through one quick draw alone for top roping. So this is okay, but it's not really ideal. Now of course this can be taken care of if you have quick draws with dog bones that are that do not all have the same length. So if you have some quick draws with longer dog bones, for example, you could use those in the top bolt to make sure that the carabiners are coming more or less on the same height. But of course there's only so far you can go with this, and if it really becomes impossible to do it, then an alternative is to use a girth hitched sling. And you can see that here in the photo to the right. So I've got two screw gate binders through the quick links, there's a sling, and then to the bottom there are the two screw gate binders that we saw before in the last part where we were talking about a single attachment point, but in this case those carabiners have been girth hitched basically into the sling. A very good advantage of this approach is that it's adjustable, so you can basically make sure that both of these bolts are being loaded in more or less the same way, with more or less the same weight, and it's a very adjustable system. Another pro of this setup is that if you compare it to, for example, using a figure of 8 or an overhand knot in a sling like this, a girth hitch is very nice, because no matter how many people are going to top rope and how heavy they are, the girth hitch is still something you will be able to take out of those carabiners pretty easily, which can be very different for an overhand knot or even a figure of 8. There's also a con, of course. This simply requires you to have more gear, because in this case I will need a sling and in this example even 4 screw gate carabiners to construct an anchor like this. Alright, next up let's have a look at anchor cleaning. So remember the situation, the first person who came to the top, who led the climb, has installed this anchor with 2 quick draws, in this case with a post gate at the top. And people have been climbing here for a while, and now we want to move to another route. So I'm the last climber, and it's up to me to recover these 2 quick draws. So the first step that I'm going to do is I'm going to clip myself into the anchor. Again, here's my lifeline clipped into a quick link. And then what I can do again is I can take a bite out of the rope. And now it's very important to realize that what happens next is that because I'm not dealing with a single attachment point, it means that that bite of the rope needs to be passed through both of the quick links in this case, because I don't want to end up hanging just from one bolt. And that's what I'm doing here. So I'm basically pulling that bite of the rope first through the bolt to the right and then through the bolt to the left. And here comes again that knot that we saw before, the figure of 8 on a bite, and that figure of 8 on the bite goes onto your harness. Now you'll notice that the figure of 8 on a bite is connected by a screw gate binder to my belay loop. It's at the back actually of the normal rope that I've been tied into, but of course the normal way that I've been tied into now can be undone again. So I'm going to tie out of the rope there, and that means that I have a loose end over here. I can then take out the quick draws because they are no longer needed in this case. And finally I want to pull the rope through and again make a knot in it to make sure that I can keep it with me to avoid any snagging. And you'll notice, the situation that I end up with in this case is that the rope is passing through both of the quick links. So again, I can shout to my belayer, take or block. I can move up a little bit, make sure that my lifeline goes a little bit slack, so I can see that everything is alright. And then once everything is alright, I will unclip my lifeline and I will call out to my belayer to lower me. Now this is all good to well, but in some situations what you might be encountering is that the quick links are actually so small that they don't allow you to put multiple carabiners into a quick link. Or alternatively, your carabiners might be a little bit big. And you might be able to fit 2 carabiners into the quick link, but you can probably imagine, if the bottom of the quick link is crowded by 2 carabiners and you're first weighing the first pair and then you're going to weigh the other carabiner, you have a pretty big chance that it's going to be really hard to deconstruct the anchor. So sometimes you just want to make sure that there's just 1 carabiner in the quick link and not more than that. So if that is something that you want to accomplish, you come again to the top of the route. So now we're going to assume for a moment that actually it is not possible and not feasible for me to put another carabiner into the quick link like I did before. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to install basically my lifeline into the top carabiner of one of the quick draws. And that means that on that side I basically spare 1 carabiner in the quick link. And then if you would go ahead and you would go on in the same way as we did before, you would do something like this. I'm now in my lifeline, so I'm going to take the rope, basically the other carabiner, I'm going to take it, the other quick draw, I'm going to take it out of the other bolt of the anchor. But this is something that we don't want to do for a variety of reasons. Now, first of all, you guys may have noticed that if you look to the left, the yellow circle there, that first of all, there's a normal carabiner there and there's a screw gate carabiner inside, which is a little bit weird. But the primary problem with this construction is what's happening to the right over there. The fact that the quick draw is being taken out of that second bolt. Because remember, we are cleaning the route, we haven't just led the climb. So it means that when I climb up, the only 2 bolts that are keeping me safe are the ones that are in the anchor. And it means if I take one of those bolts out of the system, basically, it means that I'm now only hanging from 1 single fixed piece of protection. Which again, in some areas where you have perfect bolts might be pretty much okay, but in other areas where bolts might be rusted or you might not be entirely sure, then you still want to remain connected to at least 2 of these fixed pieces of protection, so 2 bolts. So let's rewind for a moment and go back to the moment in time that we got to the top. So we came to the top and the first thing we did is we installed a lifeline. But now in this picture what I'm going to do, you'll see I'm installing a second lifeline in the other anchor as well. And in this case it's a second lifeline. It might also be, for example, a couple of quick draws or perhaps a long quick draw, one that has been lengthened. Whatever you do, just make sure that it's not just that one piece of protection that you are hanging from and nothing else. Now please note that both of them are in this case clipped into the carabiners of the quick draws to make sure that I avoid that problem that I will have multiple carabiners crowding at the bottom of the quick link, pressing against each other, making it really hard to, for example, shift your weight from one set of carabiners to another. And from this situation now I can start the work as before. So I take a bite on the rope, I pass basically the bite through the quick links, and then the rest of the process is really the same. But in this case, with the difference of course that there's only one carabiner maximum in the quick link at the top. And that's what I wanted to show you about anchor, Toprope anchor construction and cleaning. If you have any questions, please reach out to me using climbing@bluepinnacle.com. Thank you for your attention, and let's climb.